Part 22. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Cheng. Chapter 212. The four of them entered the courtroom and sat down outside. The matter was related to Earl Lizzie's family scandal. At Sarah's request, many wealthy people from Wally came. Zachary and Khalida were sitting together. She waved her hands towards the four dazzling people and sighed, they seemed to shine. Zachary looked at them, frowned, and held his breath. How could the leader endure the stench of those two people? Across the middle court, he was almost smelt by the sultry werewolf smell. Khalida sniffed and got angry, are you just round the corner and saying I stink? She obviously wore perfume today. Zachary immediately looked away, tilted his head and rubbed her face with his lips, you smell good, can you not let me live in the fish pond at night? My tail will not wet the bed anymore. Dreaming Khalida slapped his face away, Sela didn't even let Roxt crawl across the bed, how can you do that? Perhaps crawled. Did you see it? Pets should be in fish ponds, not crawling on any kind of bed. Khalida paused while waving the fan, then looked at the depressed mermaid next to her, and clasped the fan with her fingertips. It doesn't seem impossible. After all, it looks so good. Anaxi was the last one to get in through the crack in the door. Her face looked bad, and when she saw the four luminous bodies sitting together, her face became even paler. Last night, all three progress bars turned into a strange symbol. At first she didn't understand how everything could be like this, but when she saw this scene, she just thought, did these three people have Syrah in bed together? Is it possible? She didn't want to believe it. But it looks like that again. Sierra also noticed Anaxi, and she caught her with a look of hatred, and the other person lowered his head and avoided it. The trial begins. Josie stood in the dock and made a self-statement, describing her experience with the gentleman from the beginning, how she gambled again and again under his instigation, and was finally deceived into owing a large sum of money, without saying a word. Mention the sweet past the two had. Judge, according to the appeal letter sent by the casino, you are lovers. There was an uproar below. Josie denied loudly, if he was a lover, how could he leave me alone? How could he? He was just a liar from the United Casino who deceived me. A gentleman liar. The casino must have given him money. You see, he didn't even dare to appear in court. Everyone is running away. Just because she knew that man would not come, she had the courage to deny everything, just to save her last pitiful self-esteem. The judge knocked on the table and said, bring Folsom up. The person in charge of the casino said, he has been picking up customers at the brothel. I spent a lot of money to buy his sleep time during the day before inviting him there. A man stood up from the audience and walked slowly down. He was tall and thin, wearing a black suit, and had a pretty handsome face. However, when compared with Josie's face, one could tell at a glance that there was a huge age difference between the two. Folsom said, I didn't want to come, but Mrs. Josie's slander that I was colluding with the casino owner is really too much. If you don't want to leave some face to each other, then there is nothing I can't say. What nonsense are you talking about? It's you. It's you who cheated me. It's you who deceived me. It's all you. As soon as Chiao 11 saw him, she went crazy and rushed over to beat him, but was pushed down by the guard. Stopping, her chest hit the table, and she screamed in pain. Quiet, the judge shouted. Tell me your facts, Folsom. She took the initiative to strike up a conversation with me. I can give her happiness that Mr. Lizzie cannot. She said she wants to be with me every day. Folsom pinched the bridge of his nose and said with a sad look, I did hide my identity and date her at the beginning because I really fell in love with this woman, even though she was also someone else's mistress. The whole place was in an uproar again. Sierra poked Rosehill's arm. Did you prepare this line too? He improvises, he replied quietly. As expected of a male prostitute, she did everything right when he acted, and she could see tears in his eyes. You love me? You love me and you cheated me out of my money. Liar, liar, liar. Xiao 11 knew that he was really a male prostitute, and that she had been slept with by a male prostitute who didn't know how many people had slept with her. The contemptuous eyes on her were like daggers, and she almost went crazy. She looked at Anashi in the audience. She buried her head very low, not wanting to look at her mother. Ah! Judge! They colluded. Someone wants to harm me. Someone wants to harm me. I didn't harm you. How much money did you spend on gambling with you? Did I ask you to score a point? Folsom squeezed out 2 tears and complained, Your Honor, I love she, so I indulged her in gambling again and again, until the last time I couldn't stand it anymore. She lost money and forced me to get 100,000 gold coins to support her. How many women do I need to make money to satisfy her appetite? Sol asked, amusing everyone in the audience. All my money outflows were spent on casinos, as well as expenses on hotels and lake tours with Mrs. Josie. My accounts are clearly recorded. Folsom handed a black parchment book to the judge. The people below were whispering. A mistress actually got together with a male prostitute. This hot topic will spread throughout Wally. The parchment notebook clearly recorded the amount of money Folsom spent on Josie, and the amount became larger each time. If it weren't for love, which man would be willing to spend so much money on a woman? Folsom said sadly, I really can't stand her oppression, Your Honor, please, please let me go back to Mr. Lizzie. You bitch. You bitch. I'm going to kill you. It's obviously you who seduced me, Josie roared, her hair disheveled and her image completely gone, as if she was really crazy. Shut up, bitch. Lizzie stood up with her extra gray hair from the night, threw the crutch angrily at Josie, lost her balance and threw herself forward, falling down the steps, causing a burst of exclamations. Okay, be quiet. The facts are now confirmed. Josie Cherry was suspected of not paying debts and not fulfilling obligations. She was sentenced to arrest and imprisonment in court. She was detained in Dongcheng prison. The debt will be paid off by your daughter. Anaxi was stunned and stood up instantly. What? I don't have any money. The trial is over. No, no, no. I won't pay back the money. I have no money. Anaxi rushed over in a panic, but Khalida held her shoulders and suppressed her. She shook her fan and said with a smile, Tell me, why are you always at odds with Syrah? She is much smarter than you. In the storybook, she is the proper heroine. Go away. I am the heroine. I am the center of this world. I am. One of them has been reviewed, please wait. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 213. Anaxi yelled, and stretched out her hand to catch her in collapse. Zachary held her wrist, threw her to the side, and then looked at Khalida as if she wanted to reward her. She patted his chin with her fan and said with a smile, You performed well. I'll give you half of the bed tonight. That evening, because of Josie's debt, someone from the casino forcibly removed all the valuables from Lizzie's house. That's just my mistress. We didn't register our marriage. He slumped at the door, holding a glass box in vain, which contained the precious rings he once wore. The things were snatched away by someone, who said, Miss Anai is your daughter, and of course you have to pay off her mother's debt. Now we have taken away her dowry, but the money is far from enough. No. No, no, no. Give it back to me. Give it back to me. Anna 11 came out of the house and was also pushed into the arms of the servant behind her. The casino group took all the belongings of the family and left in a grand manner. Sierra sat in the car, rubbed the fangs hanging on her bracelet with her fingers, opened the door, and got out of the car. "Myself," she said to Luosiad sitting in the car. "Lloyd, don't talk too much, your throat will hurt." Lizzie sat dejectedly at the door, her nose still blocked by gauze, with a purple ring on it, and the injury was serious. Not far away, he saw the hem of a black skirt coming into view. He raised his head in a daze. For a moment, Sierra's face seemed to overlap with that of Clemens. His lips trembled, and there were tears in his eyes. "Clemens, my wife, my poor wife, I was wrong." Sierra watched him quietly. Ever since he moved out of Mawson Manor, his father had become older day by day, and now, he was thrown into hell by her with nothing. "You are wrong," she said softly, "my mother is so perfect and you betrayed her. You didn't even go to see her at the funeral. It's your own fault that you've ended up here today." During a woman's pregnancy, he maintained contact with his lover, and even gave birth to his lover's child first. The setting of this story is disgusting when I think about it, and the supporting character is a big tragedy because the family environment has deteriorated. Lizzie shed tears. "I'm sorry for you." "Dad," Anaxi yelled from the side, "she is Sierra. She did everything. She must have done everything." She staggered to her feet and wanted to rush over to catch someone. With her head held high, she spotted Rose Hill standing by the side not far away. Today was a cloudy day with no Sunday. He held a cigarette between his fingers and stared at them with a pair of black eyes. A creepy feeling suddenly appeared on the back of her neck, and Anaxi stopped for a moment, too scared to even take a step closer to Sierra. "When can you get out? Get out of my world. I have nothing left." She couldn't speak too clearly. She growled lowly, her nails scratching the hem of her skirt almost to the point of scratching. Sierra said, "As long as you don't harm me again and again, you have everything." From the beginning, she had no intention of harming Anna 11. Taking away the male lead made her go crazy, which was understandable. She is not a good person, she is just more stupid and bad. I didn't dare to think deeply about these words, as there was a vampire watching every move behind me. "Everything will be returned to you. Before that, please endure hardship." Sierra smiled, turned, and left. Every item on her body is a precious treasure, which is incompatible with this civilian street. Anaxi, who has been reduced to a low-class person, is jealous with red eyes, but she does not dare to act rashly. She was really afraid of that cruel vampire duke, it was so scary. On Christmas Day, the spooky castle was decorated with lights outside. Several pruned spruce trees were placed on the lawn, decorated with ribbons, stars, and other decorations. There was also the crisp sound of bells when the autumn wind blew. Sierra sat in her bedroom, a thin blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and 3 gifts on the table, each labeled with a name, just waiting to be delivered after tonight. Each gift box contains only a letter and a beautiful bouquet of lilies. She stared at the box for a long time. When she heard a knock on the door, she turned her head and smiled softly. "Is the turkey ready?" "Come on, that vampire servant has made a lot of things you like to eat." Luosiad came over, tore open the gummy package and handed it to her lips. "Strawberry flavored, very sweet." She opened her mouth and bit down, and the sweetness of the strawberry jam spread between her lips and teeth. "Is it sweet?" he lowered his head and asked, then snatched half a piece of gummy candy from her mouth. After eating, he licked his lips and asked himself, "It's quite sweet, as sweet as you. You took half of it?" Sierra punched him in the abdomen, her wrists were held, and she stood up and leaned into his arms. "I heard that Christmas only happens once a year, so it is a very grand holiday for you. Well, wouldn't it be nice if all the family and friends get together? I also prepared a gift for you." A string of cold things fell on her wrist. Sierra felt her skin getting cold and raised her wrist. A small hole was pierced in the middle of a beautiful black scale, and a string of thin pearls was used as a bracelet, which was worn on her wrist. By the light outside, you can still see that the color of the scales is colorful black and radiant. Did you pull out your own scales? She turned her wrist and looked up at the smiling beautiful mermaid. The most beautiful piece on my tail. I spent a whole night choosing this piece to give to you. Do you like it? Luo Xied put his arm around her shoulders and stretched his hand towards her other wrist. I like it, so beautiful. Sierra happily squeezed into his arms and rubbed his neck a few times. Then just throw away what Eric gave you, okay? No, that's just what I want. It turned out to be waiting for her here. Luox pressed the tip of his tongue against his cheek, gave up on untying the wolf hair rope, and said unhappy, then what you gave me must be different from others, and must be unique, right? Sierra pursed her lower lip, her long eyelashes lowered to cover up the guilt in her eyes. Well, it's different. Can you give it to me now? No, how can you open gifts so early? No matter what, you have to wait 2 days after Christmas. Luo Xied frowned and lowered his head. It takes so long to open the gift. Because, it's special enough. The longer you wait, the more important the gift becomes. Sierra smiled broadly, with no hint of lies. Okay, I'll like whatever you give me anyway, he reluctantly agreed, then pinched her chin and lifted it up. I'm giving you a treatment to moisturize your throat, and I can say a few more words for dinner later. Sierra was gagged. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 214. The two of them stayed in the bedroom for a long time before Sierra followed him downstairs with her body feeling limp. Now she had to carry 2 cents with her for a long time. When she faced Rose Hill again, his eyes swept over her, and there was nothing strange about her, as if she was used to it. Sierra looked at the special gifts on her left and right wrists, then at him, and finally decided to go back upstairs and put on the ruby that she had just worn yesterday. A piece of lace white cloth was used as the tablecloth, and plates of brightly colored food decorated with different colored peppers were brought to the table. Except for Sierra, the other two were not very interested in these baked things. What Aldine prepared for Rose Hill was a piece of bloody steak, and what was placed in front of Lashid was another piece of sashimi. Sierra switched the song on the record player to a Christmas song, walked to her seat, sat down, raised her milk glass, and said with a smile, "Merry Christmas. Rose Hill, Merry Christmas. Lloyd, Merry Christmas. Bless her first Christmas in this world." The mince pie tasted very good. Sierra ate it in small bites, but she couldn't hold it in the back, so she put the plate on it. She thought about many things she should do for Christmas. Her eyes crossed Rose Hill's indifferent face, and she thought about it but decided not to do it. He would not play fairy tale farce with her, it would be too childish. Rose Hill didn't eat much of the bloody steak, but took a few sips of wine. He wiped his lower lip with a napkin and asked, "Are you full?" Sierra nodded. She didn't know what to do after eating, and she was a little bored. He walked around the table and walked towards the gate. "Go to the gate." She suddenly became interested, moved her stool and was about to follow. Luo Xied quickly pulled down the hem of her too long skirt and said, "You walk slower. If you don't see it, you will step on the skirt. You come too." She pulled his arm, quickly let go, and ran out following Rose Hill's back. Behind the castle is the road up the mountain, and in front is a green wilderness with a wide view. It will be dark now, it's pitch black in the distance, and you can't see anything from a distance. Rose Hill stood still at the door, turned around and watched her approaching. Fireworks exploded in the sky at this moment, and colorful streams of light illuminated his face. Sierra paused. Fireworks covered almost half of the sky, revealing the appearance of a large forest in the distance. Wow! She tried her best to raise her neck and looked at the fireworks scattered like snowflakes in the sky, her eyes wide open. Seeing her fascination, Rosehill curled her lips and asked, "Do you like it?" Yes, Sierra nodded vigorously, her eyes never leaving the sky, her pupils filled with the light of fireworks, as bright as the stars. Rosehill looked at the sky, then take a closer look. Roxt, who was standing on the other side of Sierra, also raised his head, looking at the fireworks in the sky, which were not as good as the glowing plankton in the ocean. He quickly calmed down his eyes, and his eyes stayed on Sierra's mesmerized face. On the face. She seemed happier than when she saw the bracelet he gave her. Involuntarily, Loosied's eyes darkened, and he looked at Rosehill with a more disgusting look. This thing is so annoying. Sierra didn't notice the change in his mood, her eyes were filled with those fireworks. Something was also stuffed into her hand. She lowered her head and saw that it was a red Christmas card, handed over by Rosehill. He didn't look at her and quickly took his hand back. Sierra received the greeting card and did not open it immediately. She just held it tightly, feeling a little more complicated. She was alone in the past, and her life was pretty good. She just watched the Christmas fireworks show alone in a crowd, celebrated at midnight alone, ate the takeout from the restaurant she ordered for dinner alone, and there were no people around for Christmas cards. If it's easy to write, just write it to yourself. And this Christmas here filled all her regrets and vacancies. Christmas tree, fireworks, party, Christmas card. Sierra raised her head, her eyes a little moist. "I'm so happy, this year's festival is so perfect. Is this the meaning of Paper Man?" She couldn't treat her like a thin dummy at all. This emotion was too real, and she wanted to have the real one. These inner words did not reach Rosehill's ears, and his ability to read her mind failed again. He couldn't read her heart, but he could know her happiness on the surface. He turned his head and rubbed the top of her hair twice with his palms. Aldine's suggestion was somewhat useful. He made the right move. Young girls like this romantic way of celebrating the holidays. In the distant forest, several vampires pinched their noses impatiently. "I hate the smell of these fireworks. How many more fireworks should I set off?" Aldine blocked his nostrils with a handkerchief, stepped on a vampire's cloak, and put out the fire that was accidentally lit. "Come on, lighting a fire doesn't mean you should light yourself on fire." Ouch. The fireworks show lasted for an hour, and when it was over, Sierra was going to take the car to find Eric. "I promised him that I would also go to his place to celebrate the festival tonight." Loosied put her in the car and said, "I'll go with you." Sierra blocked the person at the door of the car. "I promise to be back before midnight, can you wait for me here?" "You can't kiss him." He put his head through the car window, reached in with his hand, and wiped her lips hard. "I'll be angry." Sierra bit the tip of his finger and spat it out. "Okay, I know." Loosied looked at the small teeth marks she left on his fingertips and was satisfied. Aldine only drove her to the foot of the Black Forest, the werewolf's territory. He didn't want to go too deep. "Eric has been waiting here for a long time." As soon as Sierra got out of the car, she found that she had stepped on rose petals all over the ground. Another petal fell from the tree and fell on her head. "Isn't this a hemlock?" She raised her head and heard the branches swaying, and a person jumped down from above. Eric held a bunch of branches and held her in his arms with one hand. "I thought you wouldn't come." It's joyful and ecstatic. Sierra almost suffocated in his hug, coughed and patted his back. "Let go." "I'm sorry." Eric immediately let go. The muscles in his arms were relaxed and looked strong. "You need to use less strength now." Sierra punched him in the chest, not daring to use too much force, otherwise she would still be injured. She tapped the branch in his arms and took a closer look and found that there were only a few rose petals left on it. "What are you doing holding the branch?" After asking, she seemed to understand something. Without waiting for Eric to explain, she held back her smile and asked, "You're not going to wait here all the time and then pluck all the flowers you gave me?" Eric's ears turned red and he pulled her up the mountain. "I wasn't sure if you would really come, so I plucked the petals, one for you and one for you not. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the sure." Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 215. "You're here before I finish pulling it out." He laughed as he spoke, clasped her hand tightly, and threw the bare bunch of roses into the bushes, abandoning them together with the anxiety of waiting. "As long as you come, I will send the flowers to you again tomorrow." Sierra stepped on a field of flower petals and shook his hand back. "My skirt is not suitable for walking too far, can you hold me and walk?" Eric picked her up easily, and the girl in his arms weighed almost nothing. He complained again, "How come you haven't grown any meat back after raising her for so long? You are lighter than a deer." Sierra hugged his neck and smiled, "I am heavier than an adult deer, so I will be as fat as a pig." Eric couldn't deny it, "A strong body will make you healthy and less likely to get sick. The girls in our tribe are all stronger than you. This is a fact. Compared with them, she is just a sick person who can't walk." "Is the war situation okay now?" She changed the subject. Eric, "Not very good. Kambana County is close to the capital and will not be affected for a while, but our king has defeated the 5 large counties in the northwest region on his own land. Millions of people have been conquered by St. Wolun's soldiers control the situation, and the situation is very bad. Because the Sunderland Empire is behind it." Sarah also focused on the northwest, which is the most chaotic and has many infectious diseases. Eric said indifferently, "At worst, we will welcome a new king." Sierra looked at him and said seriously, "My laundry factory and my Mawson Manor are my most important properties, if war approaches Wally." Before she could finish speaking, Eric lowered his head and kissed the top of her hair. "I know, I will protect you and your property." Sierra smiled, held his face and kissed him. "Merry Christmas, Eric." "Merry Christmas." After the last church invasion until now, Eric's tribe had been renovated and many traps were laid outside. They still took a detour before entering. It was filled with colorful lanterns, the bonfire was burning brightly, the cheers and the sound of sizzling barbecue created a festive atmosphere. All the werewolves knew that Sierra was coming today. When she appeared in gorgeous clothes, the atmosphere was still a bit light. She was framed by Anna 11 and accused of harming them. To this day, these werewolves still remember this debt. Gale was the first to bear the brunt. He actually stopped Eric and asked him to call people, but he rebelliously disagreed. Even pregnant Greenie tried to persuade him to let go of his prejudice against Sierra. In fact, there is no prejudice. Anyone who harms the tribe is his enemy. It just so happens that this is a former friend, now a bad guy, and Eric's only love. Hateful relationship. After Eric put down Sierra, he held her hand tightly and whispered, "You don't need to care about their eyes, most of them are not malicious." Even though he said this, his body still stayed by her side as a protector. Greenie's belly was obviously pregnant. The werewolf's genetic problem grew rapidly, and the bulging bulge looked like a small watermelon. Sierra stared at her belly and wanted to touch it, but restrained herself and gave her a reserved smile. Greenie took the initiative to come over and gave her a hug. "Merry Christmas, Sierra." "Merry Christmas. It seems that your health is much better, but your throat is still a little bad, and the crisp voice is gone." She touched her face pitifully. She was almost killed by a vampire, poor girl. Sierra felt the care radiating from her body, truly genuine. Not everyone here hates her, there are still people who firmly believe that she is not the mastermind. Greenie took the initiative to push out her belly, Do you want to touch it? Hey Greenie. Gale walked over nervously, but her next words were blocked by her look. Okay, okay, be careful. Sierra really wanted to imitate it, but let it go in this situation. She shook her head and took a step back. Can I join your bonfire party? I miss the dancing before. Of course, except tonight we don't dance, we act out a fairy tale farce. Grain didn't force herself and invited her to sit by the campfire. Fanny and Jem will perform Little Red Riding Hood and Granny Wolf right away. Oh. Sierra sat down next to Eric and put a piece of toast in his hand. Those meats are sprinkled with chili peppers. You can't eat it too spicy for your throat. Eat this first, and I'll get you some non-spicy meat skewers. She took a bite of the bread, and there was a layer of hot cheese stuffed inside, which was toasted just right. Soon, under the cheers of the lively werewolves, Jem, a strong man in a red cloak with a red hood and a bamboo basket in his hand, walked over from the back of the house, holding his throat in the air. Explain. Poor grandma is sick, and my mother asked me to bring wine and cake to see her. Oops. The waist thicker than a bucket swayed from side to side, and the 8-pack ABS were looming under the red cloak. Jem's standard tough guy face was concave with an expression of innocence and ignorance. Sierra couldn't hold it back and laughed. Eric next to her put his arm around her shoulders, his chest vibrating with laughter, and he didn't forget to turn the barbecue in his hand. The werewolf played by Fanny is really a living wolf. She surrounds Jem and flutters his red cloak with her fluffy tail. The painting style is strange and funny. This transformational version of fairy tale farce almost made Sierra's buttocks rotten. She really felt that Christmas with friends would be so fun and lively. So good. If only this were all true. Sierra ate the meat skewers handed over by Eric. She had already had dinner and she quickly couldn't eat any more. She pointed in the direction of Gale and said, Eric, I want to be alone with Gale. Yes, I apologize to him, and hope that he and your tribe will eliminate the estrangement against me. Eric's heart jumped forward so hard that he almost jumped out of his chest. You want this? I thought you would never want to do this in your life. When she admitted that she had done everything and refused to let go, the blow he suffered was huge. I originally thought that my chances of winning were completely gone, but that was not the case. She wanted to explain. Does this mean that he has always been her choice? Sarah loved him. This knowledge made Eric very excited, but Sierra didn't think much of it at all. It was just an excuse. She stood up and patted his shoulder. Of course I hope so. Can you give me some time to be alone with him? I believe he won't hurt me. Of course, I also know that he will not hurt you. Eric smiled, showing a row of white teeth. Sierra was his lover, and the entire tribe knew that no one would hurt her no matter how much they disliked her. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 216. Sierra found Gale, whispered something, and the two disappeared into the tribe together. It was the first time in her life that she rode on Gale's wolf's back. He ran very fiercely, and the branches in the dark night scratched her arms, scratching the fabric and leaving scratches on her fair arms. Sierra didn't mind this little torture if it made Gale feel better. After all, Greenie's child was almost harmed. Although she was not the murderer, she would have to bear the responsibility if she admitted it. The cliffside where Gale took her, facing the sea, was the location where she was first fished out. Okay, they can't hear you here. What do you want to tell me? The sea breeze was very cold. She rubbed her arms, looked at Gale and said, I want to leave Wally quietly and head to the northwest. Can you help? Gale's expression changed slightly. Leave? Are you here just to talk to me about this? His voice was tainted with anger. Are you going to take Eric and leave our tribe? Sierra shook her head. No, it's just me, but I can't do this with my ability alone, so I want to ask you. Why, Gale was even more incredible that she would make such a decision. You know there is a war going on over there, right? Sierra nodded. I know. Gale, are you going to die? Sierra was silent for a few seconds and denied, no, you just asked me if you could do me this favor and send me away to avoid being tracked by vampires and mermaids. Gale, the reason for asking me to do this. Sierra looked at him. Eric wants to brand me. You know that once he sees me as his only love, he will lose his eternal life, and if I don't love him, it will send him to hell. Gale took a breath, and there was no trace of friendship in her beautiful eyes. After all this, I really want to suspect that you are lying. You are so vicious. Sierra smiled. Her conscience was almost torn to pieces. It was quite difficult to maintain her original intention. She had wavered countless times, and every time the other party came to comfort her in vain as a paper man. It was not clear whether she was really paralyzed. My father paid off a gambling debt of hundreds of thousands of gold coins. The money is in my bank account. If you are willing to help me, I will give the money to you to give Eric and his children a stable future. You don't need to go hunting or open a butcher shop to make money. This fund is enough for Greenie to go to the best hospital to give birth. She will receive noble care. Grain was Gale's beloved wife and Eric was his loving family member, both of whom could have their lives restored. Sierra's suggestion of leaving was indeed the best advice. Gale was moved. He didn't want his tribe to fall apart. I have a way, he said, the smell on my body can cover up your smell. Sierra's eyes lit up, then dimmed again. It might not be enough to cover up the smell. The mermaid bit me once in rocks. She raised her wrist, and there was nothing on it. She touched the skin and said, he said it was a life contract, and he could find me no matter where I was. Probably similar to the imprint of the Wolf clan, with similar positioning function. Gale held her wrist, raised it to look at it, and then said, the mermaid's so-called contract and soul hook, he put a mark on your body. Sierra, soul. The word made her skin crawl. It's impossible for an Otome game character changed by a novel to really leave a mark on her soul. Will it be reasonable? She felt it was unreasonable. Is there any way? Yes, but there is a time limit. Gale frowned. He will still find it, and Eric will definitely pursue it if he knows it. He began to wonder again whether it was really worth it. How long? I don't know, as little as a month, maybe longer. Sierra nodded. Okay, I will take the rest of the time to think of a solution, and I will solve it. Seeing her decisive look, Gale asked again, it seems that you don't love the mermaid, the cruel Duke, and you don't love Eric either. Why are you still entangled with them? Sierra pursed her lips and said, in order to survive later, she had to seduce 3 people crookedly. Of course she knew that she couldn't end everything so unclearly, so secretly, she exposed the lies with her own hands, wrote 3 letters and put them in 3 gift boxes. If you reveal all the truth, they won't be sad when you burp, and they will most likely want to dig her out and lay waste to her ashes. Gale felt like she was lying again, but didn't want to dig deeper. She could stay away from Eric for any length of time, which was a bad start for him. Drink a sip of my blood and it will temporarily cover the mermaid mark. Sierra was stunned. Is this okay? Your body has been soaked with vampire venom. The effect may be better. The covering time is long enough. The Northwest is not close to the sea and across the mountains and rivers. He shouldn't be able to sense you. Gale didn't fully understand how powerful the mermaid's mark was. Okay, Sierra agreed. Gale added, I'll leave tomorrow. I happen to be going out to visit relatives during the holidays. Find a reason to come out and go to the butcher shop to find me. Such a tight schedule is what Sierra wants, otherwise it would be too bad for her to choose between 3 male protagonists. After finalizing it, she took out the prepared gift box and handed it to Gale. The contents inside will be handed over to Eric after I leave. Please give it to Eric. A late Christmas present. It was getting late when Eric saw her again. What did you talk about? We been there for a long time. He led the person to sit down, and when he spotted her broken arm with his sharp eyes, his voice deepened, he hurt you. With that said, Eric wanted to get up and go to Gail to get angry, but Sierra grabbed him and said, "It's okay, sit down." She was very insistent, and he sat down reluctantly, holding his thin white arm. The few red marks on it were a bit broken. Eric was so distressed that his heart ached. Does it hurt? It must hurt a lot. At this level, it should be healed tomorrow. Sierra didn't want him to be too nervous, so she could only comfort him along his fur. It's inevitable that you will be scratched by branches when you go out. It's just a little scratch that doesn't hurt. Gail didn't mean it. He carefully arranged her sleeves and said, "I'll get some medicine for you to apply." Sierra hugged his arm to prevent him from leaving. "No, just sit with me. Gail and I explained a lot. He forgave me. I'm very happy." "Really?" Eric looked angrily at Gail, who was hugging Greenie not far away. The other person nodded his chin at him, not showing the slightest apology. He asked, "What did you say?" "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Cheng. Chapter 217. Sierra hugged his neck, moved her body, and moved to sit on his crossed legs. I didn't call the people from the church. The sound was low enough for all werewolves to hear clearly. Many pairs of eyes looked over. Sierra was very calm, but Eric hugged her protectively. "I believe it." The voices of the tribesmen were mixed. Some believed and some did not believe, but it did not hinder him. "I have to get back to bed before midnight." Seeing the tiredness on her face, Eric stood up with her arms in his arms. "Okay. It's too late, it's time to rest." He already had a car, but in order to spend more time with Sierra, he mounted his black horse, pulled the reins, and led the people down the mountain. After they left, Greenie poked Gail and asked, "Is this really what Sierra told you?" She didn't quite believe it. He replied, "She said she was not the murderer." "Greenie, I already knew it." "Gail, you are always naive to trust others." Greenie snorted, "How else could I fall in love with you? I still remember when I rode out with you before Sierra touched the black horse's hair, and was pulled back by Eric to sit down. "I'll go out riding with you when the weather is nice," he said. "My current position in the military camp is pretty good." He had extraordinary abilities, and it was normal for him to be promoted out of the ordinary. Sierra leaned against his chest and said, "You will be a qualified officer." Eric lowered his chin slightly, letting the long, soft hair brush his lips, his eyes fascinated. "Actually, I am more suitable to be a qualified partner." Her voice was scattered in the wind. "I think so too." The hands around his waist tightened, and his thick arms were as hard as stones, revealing the tension of the person being followed. "Is that your answer?" A man came out to spend Christmas with him, thinking he would be a worthy companion. "Is that the answer?" "I'm not sure, so I'm worried." Sierra curled her lips and smiled, and said playfully, "I gave the answer to Gail. It can be regarded as this year's Christmas gift, but don't pester him to give it to me, okay? I found a lucky time to give it to you." Of course, of course." His tone was full of surprise, and he lowered his head and kissed the back of her neck, not even caring about taking those hair strands into his mouth. "I have a lot of time to wait for you." When he arrived at the gate of the castle, Eric did not go in. He was satisfied tonight and did not want to look at those two faces that would disgust him. Sierra stood on the ground, and he lifted her up by the back of her neck, kissing her forehead tenderly. "Good night." Good night. Before leaving, Eric dismounted and ran over to hold her. Actually, I have always had a problem in my mind. Sierra, huh? I know you didn't do that thing, but the person who really did it behind the scenes has something for you to defend. I've been thinking about this question for a long time. Sierra turned her feet and stopped to look at him. Then what? Eric, who had thoughts in his mind, turned slightly cold. Family, apart from family, I can't think of anyone else who is worthy of your doing this. It's Anna 11. Sierra has always been very tolerant of her relatives, and she tolerated the many mistakes they made in order to maintain family harmony. Until this time I almost lost her. Sierra didn't retort immediately and looked at him quietly. Eric pondered for a while. Go in, I'll come find you another day. Sierra walked into the iron door and turned around. Don't hurt Anaxi just yet. My father just lost everything and he can't bear the excitement of losing his daughter. He didn't understand her persistence, and the murderous intention rising in his heart was extinguished by her words. Okay, that's what you say. The curtains in the room upstairs were pulled down, and Rosehill returned to the table and sat down, lighting a cigarette with a cigarette in his lips, crossing his legs, and thinking with his scarlet eyes. Logozide had been waiting for her in the living room for a long time. When he saw that she came back on time, he took out a gummy and put it in her mouth with his finger. Go and taste it, and then take a bath. The water has been put. The messy werewolf smell stuck to her body, making his nose itchy. He felt like the wolf hair was getting into it, and he sneezed twice. I don't even want to kiss her anymore. Sierra could only smell the smoke of barbecue and firewood on her body, which was a bit heavy. She looked around and didn't see Rosehill, so she guessed that he must have expected to be smoked, so he simply didn't come down. Sierra, dot. Okay, she just thinks she stinks. I'm going to take a shower. Before she took her clothes and entered the bathroom to take a bath, she met Aldine, who came to deliver essential oils, and asked casually, did the person in the basement deal with it? Aldine held his breath and said, get rid of it. You stink too, Sierra. Sierra, dot. Slam the door. The midnight bell rang on time, and several vampire guards dormant in the dark had not eaten for several days. Rosehill glanced at Sierra's door and decided to take people out hunting and eat some vegetarian food. He also wanted to know whether he could adapt to this boring taste. Logosied waited around in the bedroom, but no one came out, and there was no response when he knocked on the door. He gently pushed the door open and saw the girl leaning on the edge of the bathtub with a red face, asleep. With a soft look on his face, he walked over and took her out, wrapped her in a large bath towel, and gently laid her on the bed. The large bath towel was wrapped loosely around her chest, and was long enough to cover her buttocks. Logosied went to get another towel to dry her hair. When she came back, she pulled off the bath towel and turned over, revealing her thin white legs and waist. Are you sincerely seducing me? His lake blue eyes instantly burst with desire. He threw the towel on the chair next to him and walked over. In her sleep, Sierra felt a chill on her waist, and the friction of rough scales made her skin goosebumps. Her closed eyes moved restlessly. Cold. Where she couldn't see, a giant fishtail was entangled on the bed, and its black and reflective scales wrapped around a girl's body that was white and glowing, creating a strong visual contrast. The light is warm, and the ambiguous atmosphere created by the extreme tension spreads in the bedroom. The slender legs were separated by the fish's tail. Sierra, who was so sleepy that she lost her temper, barely opened a slit of her eyes. Lucid. The mermaid leaned over and kissed her neck. Yes. She pushed his face with her soft hands. What is your tail doing? Can I serve you? After being pushed away, he shamelessly leaned in, his voice seductive. No, it's just Christmas, so you can be happy. All the words he wanted to say were blocked, and his hands and feet could not reach the long-tailed mermaid. When Sierra grabbed his hair angrily, she did not miss the smile in his eyes at all. A serious mermaid, even if she doesn't do it, is still a master of flirting. Sierra's temper and strength were worn out, and she fell asleep in the middle of the night. When I woke up the next day, my waist felt weak. She looked at Luxid, who came in with new clothes for her to wear. Her eyes stayed on his slender fingertips for 2 seconds, and then she looked away silently. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 218. She grabbed the clothes and pushed him away. I'll wear it myself, you turn around. Luo Xied had a doting look on his face, his feet didn't move at all, and he didn't even move his eyes. You put it on yourself. Sierra, I'm going to go shopping on the street by myself later, but you're not allowed to follow me. Luo Xied refused directly. No. He wouldn't accept her losing her protection for a second now. Sierra glared. No. Luo Xied pursed his lower lip and weakened. Okay, where do you want to go? Sierra, I'm going to talk to Khalida and ask her if she will have an emergency like last night. Lucid raised his eyebrows. Exactly. In fact, he had mated during the mating season, but he didn't have a lover, so he was very clean. Sierra hid under the quilt and paused while putting on clothes. You don't have a lover, have you ever had sex? Don't look at me with such suspicious eyes. Luo Xied walked to the bedside and kissed her dry lips. Of course I can restrain my body's instinct, but they can't. Reproduction is an important task. Sierra kicked him on the knee. Can you restrain yourself? It seemed like it was a fake fish that took advantage of people's danger last night. Luo Xied didn't mind being kicked by her tender feet, and poked her swollen face with his fingertips. Besides, I can sense that your mood is also very happy. We are very happy for each other. Sierra, he is really good at making pornographic waste serious. If this continues, she will really be eaten clean. Not even a scum is left. However, last night can be regarded as a Christmas gift for him. Seeing him again will only be through a computer screen. Thinking of this, Sierra felt a little blocked again. She raised her arms and put her arms around his neck. Okay, you can find me wherever I am. Just leave me and Khalida alone this afternoon. I'm going to say Merry Christmas to her. She took the initiative to get close to her. Her eyes were filled with water, and her lips were soft and pouty. Luo Xied felt soft and agreed. When the two went out, there was no one in the castle. Sierra asked curiously, where is Rose Hill? Lucid, the hunting is over. Most of Wally's forests are owned by werewolves. They are going to hunt further afield and will probably come back soon. Sierra blinked. It's just that he wasn't here last night. No wonder he didn't stop him in such a situation. It's a good thing he's not here, otherwise this castle would probably be demolished. Didn't you bring back a sunken ship? Choose some beautiful jewelry for me. I feel like I have nothing to wear. Sierra pointed to her bare neck and said coquettishly, after you finish choosing, come and take me home. There were still several small strawberries on her delicate neck, all of which were the marks he had chewed last night. Loxida's heart was filled with warm water, and whatever she said was what she said. Okay, let me choose some beautiful ones for you. Terry was not here today either, so he went downstairs to drive first. Sierra took out the remaining 2 gift boxes and put one in Roxide's bedroom and the other in Rose Hill's room. A string of precious ruby necklaces were also put in. The letter to Rose Hill contained an extra sentence. She rejected his marriage request and hoped that he would become a good vampire in the future. With only a little money, Sierra took Lucid's car to Khalida's house. After saying goodbye, he went to find beautiful jewelry for her in the boat parked on the beach. However, she herself didn't even step into Khalida's house. She just prepared an extra letter and asked the servant at the door to deliver it. Then, she called another car and went to the door of the butcher shop. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 219. Gale told his tribe in the morning that he would go out to visit relatives after the festival. This is something he and Greenie do every year. Usually this is the time for the two of them to go out to greet each other, and it takes about a week to go. Jim, who was helping in the butcher shop, saw the girl at the door and said, "Eric is in the military camp. Are you here to buy meat at this time?" Sierra nodded and glanced at the busy Gale. "I haven't been here for a long time, come and have a look." They almost broke up before because of betrayal, and then reluctantly reconciled because of the war. Now the misunderstanding seems to have been resolved. There is a tendency for the relationship to break the ice. Gale took the initiative to choose the meat for her and said, "Are you coming alone?" Sierra nodded. He said naturally, "I'm going out too, and I'll take you back on the way." "Okay." The brief conversation between the two sounded completely flawless. Gale turned around and said, "Jem, you must take good care of Greenie during the week I am gone." Jem didn't have the slightest doubt, he just thought that the relationship between Gale and Sierra had really eased, and quickly promised, "Don't worry, I will take care of it." Gale helped carry the meat and left side by side with Sierra. The meat bought from the butcher shop was given by Sierra to a poor person passing by. Gale looked at her outfit and whispered, "Are you going to follow me like this?" Sierra shook her head and said, "Buy a new set. If I dress too casually when I come out of the castle, I will be suspected by Logos yet." The two of them avoided the crowds and went to a small tailor shop that didn't have much business. They bought a set of women's clothes and changed into them. Seeing that she had casually thrown away the expensive clothes she had changed into, Gale asked again, "You're going on the road without any luggage?" "Sierra, I brought some money, and I left all the other properties to Khalida." Gale was surprised, the bank president's daughter. Sierra nodded, "Well, I asked her to be responsible for using my money to maintain the laundry factory." As for Mawson Manor, which she had not returned to for a long time, she also explained it in her letter to Rose Hill and asked him to take it back. She came with nothing, and of course she couldn't take anything with her. Gale understood that her determination to leave was a determination to never come back. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and said, "I don't understand. I mean, I understand how you want to escape after making a mistake, but you give away all of such a huge amount of property to others and don't keep it for yourself at all. You are in the flames of war. How to live on barren land?" Sierra replied calmly, "The money I took away is enough to support my life for a long, long time, so Gale, don't ask any more, we just have a good outcome for each other, right?" He fell silent, then took off his jacket and vest and put it on her. "Wear it, it will cover your smell." Sierra put her jacket on over her original clothes, and then Gale scratched her arm with her sharp nails. "Swallow a little. The taste of blood is like licking a rusty iron rod when it enters your mouth and rolls all the way into your stomach, making you sick." "Okay." Sierra wiped her mouth to suppress the nausea. Gale raised his head slightly, and the two of them avoided the crowded towns and left via an unexplored mountain road. Riding on his wolf's back this time was much gentler than last night. Gale would not let her scratch the branches and suffer a lot. Instead, he consciously avoided it and tried to choose a smooth place to walk. Sierra looked back at the town further and further away, her fingers gradually tightening on the wolf's fur. A dream is gradually leaving her, everything here will become a memory and be buried forever. Gradually losing sight of the city, Sierra turned her head and never looked back. She was reluctant and sad, and silently buried her head in Gale's fluffy back hair. In the evening, Lucid estimated the time and went to Khalida's home to pick up someone with a small box in his arms. She came out in a hurry, without even wearing shoes, and screamed, "What's going on with you, Fish and Sierra? I just went out to watch a play with Zachary in the morning. How could she put all her property away? Give it to me." Lucid took the letter she handed him, and he recognized the handwriting on it. Khalida muttered, "She entrusted 2 such large laundry factories to me, but half of them were given to Eric, and she didn't want any of the huge deposits in the bank. What on earth did she do?" Thing. Logosyed was a little confused for a moment and didn't understand what was going on. "She said she would come to you to celebrate the festival today." "Khalida, I told her long ago that I would go out to play after the festival. How could she take this time to come and play with me? Is she lying to you?" The smart melon-eating king immediately analyzed it. "She's not running away, is she? Are you threatening her to make her only love you? She disagrees and runs away." Zachary pulled her and motioned her not to tell the possibly cruel truth. Ra sighed, "Escape." The servant who answered the letter outside also confirmed, "I asked Miss Sarah to come in and sit down, but she refused. She got into a car and left." When she coquettishly directed him to get the jewelry, was she thinking of pushing him away and running away? Logosyed's heart suddenly sank to the bottom. He threw the jewelry box in his hand and smashed it against the wall. A pile of precious jewelry fell out of it and shattered into pieces. Zachary felt uneasy about such a leader. "Terry and I went to help find people." Khalida never thought that Sira, who was living a good life, would suddenly disappear and leave something like a suicide note, so she quickly said, "I will also help look for it." Logosyed stood there without moving, his tall figure covered with an invisible layer of frost. Run. Did he run away? He bound her soul with a mark. How could she run away? The young man's lake blue eyes became strange, and the little bits of light in his eyes seemed to overflow from the eye sockets, adding an enchanting look to his evilly beautiful face. As soon as Khalida summoned the bodyguards in her house and sent them all out, she saw Rock's strange expression, which was the same as the one who killed someone on the train that night. She hid behind Zachary and patted his waist. "His eyes are shining, can you do the same?" Zachary held her hand, rarely paying attention to her lack of strength, and looked at the leader quietly. 5 minutes later, Logosyed's expression finally changed slightly, his body swayed, and he gritted his teeth and said harshly, "Where have you been? There is no trace of any mark, no direction can be found, and it is completely hidden, as if it no longer exists." Panic began to spread, and he walked away in a hurry. Zachary left Khalida. "I have to go help." "Of course, go quickly and I'll help find out what's going on." Logosyed arrived at the castle quickly, and it was unknown how long it would take for Rose Hill to return. He was sitting in the living room that was almost destroyed by himself. The crystal chandelier from the top was smashed at his feet, and he could not even notice the mess. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure. Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 220. Where did Sira go? Logosyed walked in with a fierce aura. Rose Hill had a ruby necklace hooked on her pale fingertips, holding a letter. There was also a recently unpacked gift box on the sofa, as well as a slightly broken lily. Unlike Logosyed, who was about to go crazy with anger, he was calm and seemed to understand all the truth. Your gift is upstairs. He raised his eyelids expressionlessly, then quickly lowered them. If the living room wasn't about to collapse from torture, Logosyed would have believed in his calmness. He rushed to the bedroom upstairs to find the belated Christmas gift. Full of mixed emotions, he slowly opened the gift box. A letter and a lily, exactly the same as those Rose Hill received. It wasn't the special gift she promised him, a sign of love. She lied. So she really wanted to escape and create the illusion of loving him before escaping. A certain string in Logosyed's mind suddenly broke. He opened the folded envelope with his slender fingertips. His eyes sank into the dead water little by little, and then filled with great pain. The letter paper was a sharp dagger, and the writing turned into a blade, which caused him unbearable pain. She said that all the past experiences with him, including this world, were all false. She said she was feigning her love for him to survive. She said that the redemption from the first encounter to the deliberate approach later were all fake. She never loved anyone, she only loved herself. From beginning to end, it was all a carefully disguised scam. She is just a supporting character, she only loves him because she wants to escape from this world. Fraud. Liar. Luosiet threw the letter out and kicked the bed behind him. Click. The entire luxurious four-poster bed was cracked from the middle, wood slag flew, and then the entire bed collapsed. Obviously just yesterday, they were still doing extremely intimate things on this big, unsightly bed, and all she could see was him. A suppressed roar came from upstairs. The floor partitions vibrated, making the sound of furniture being destroyed. Aldine stood silently in the corner and patted the dust on his shoulder. He was not surprised at all by the movement upstairs. When his master read the letter, he almost killed him by mistake. He has rarely encountered situations like the crazy butcher. Aldine. Rosehill put away the letter and twitched the corners of her lips. Go find Anaxi and bring her to me. He had long known that Syrah had a secret, and that she had a purpose in approaching him. At the moment when the truth was revealed, the pain of being teased made him fall into despair. Despair. From the moment he was unable to inherit the throne to this day, he rarely felt this emotion again. The rotten heart is empty. He clicked lightly, his pale face showing no emotion, his scarlet eyes dark and cruel. So what if I leave? No matter how he left, he would find it again. After leaving Cumbonia, Sierra asked Gale to take her to Leicestershire. The two of them traveled by land. The original 7-day sailing journey took Gale only 3 days to complete it. She came to the cemetery, where Clemens was buried. It's snowing here, covered in silver, and the wind is blowing coldly. The bouquets of flowers surrounding the square stone tablet had long since withered and rotted and were covered with a layer of snow. The surrounding area has been neglected for a long time and is overgrown with weeds. Gale helped clean up, and Sierra placed the newly bought bouquet of lilies in front of the stone monument. When she came here, what she saw when she opened her eyes was the stone tablet representing her mother. She loved Syrah very much before she died. She squatted down and touched the string of names engraved on it, her fingers turned red from the cold. After watching it for a long time, Sierra said softly, at least in this version of the ending centered on me, your daughter helped you vent your anger, took away all your property, and gave you a cuckold husband who is now alive. Wandering on the streets with no money, his lover is also in jail and will never come out in his life, and as for his lover's daughter. She paused and said softly, I revealed all the truth about this world. She will never get any love again. Sleep peacefully, mother. Mother. The first time she shouted to the stone monument, she felt that it was really her mother. The breeze coming from an unknown direction gently brushed her cheek and lifted her hair, seeming to comfort her. Sierra stood up and straightened the hem of her skirt, looked at the delicate bouquet of lilies for a long time, then turned to Gale and said, let's go. When he came to Leicestershire, Gale stopped by to visit the tribe here. As luck would have it, Sarah had met them when she left Leicestershire. The handsome black-haired werewolf Hinek and his tribe. Hey, Gale, long time no see. The two hugged each other and greeted each other. Syrah stood behind and instantly caught Hynek's attention. He recognized the girl he almost fell in love with at first sight at a glance. You haven't been branded by Eric yet, Sarah. Gale was surprised, do you know each other? Seeing that the other party came over enthusiastically to hug him, Sierra also stretched out her hand to hug him. Unexpectedly, Hynek directly picked her up in the air with one hand and spun her around in several circles. It just so happens that I don't have a partner either. Do you need a partner? Syrah, but why do you have a special smell on your body? He quickly put the person down, his eyes looking strange. Sierra raised her two wrists. On one side was a tooth necklace made of Eric's wolf hair, and on the other side was a beautifully shaped fish scale bracelet. She smiled and said, "There are many suitors. I'm afraid you will have to queue up to get your number." Hinek took a closer look at the fish scales, took a step back, and frowned. "Mermaid." Sierra put down her hand and kept smiling. "Yeah." Gale separated the two of them with his body. "Okay, Hinek, she is just someone Eric loves but can't live without. Don't have anything to do with her. If two werewolves fall in love with a human at the same time, a war will inevitably break out." Hynek said nothing more, only asked, "Then why did you bring Eric's people out?" Gale, she rejected Eric's advances. She wanted to stay away from Eric and let him break free from the emotions of the passionate love period. "I was responsible for helping to get everything back on track. Werewolves will always spare no effort to protect their own people." Hynek nodded, but the look he looked at Sierra had a hint of "You are so cruel. It's like saying, it turns out you are a scumbag." Sierra opened her eyes and plucked the milky white fangs with her fingertips. Rooney from the Hynek tribe grilled a lot of meat and invited the two of them to eat, and the atmosphere was lively. Sierra had a good night here, but she still didn't dare delay. The seventh day. Sierra went to the train station. She was already in a county in the northwest and refused Gale's request to take her all the way to her destination. "You are just out to visit relatives. Don't leave Greenie for too long. Go back. I also wrote down the money in the bank and transferred it to you. Just go and collect it." "Thank you, Gale." "Which city are you going to?" Gale asked. "After dressing up as the evil girl in the second game, I opened my eyes and found myself in the Sure." Author, Mei Guicheng. Chapter 221. Sarah wasn't going to tell him, so she made up a random one. "This train goes to Nyborg, which is quite stable." "Gale, if you want to leave, there are many places to choose from, so why would you choose an unstable place?" He asked this question several times along the way, but every time she was very perfunctory. Sarah didn't know either. She felt that Anaxi's system couldn't think of any good way to die and came up with random ideas. She didn't answer, just waved to Gale and got on the train that was about to leave. Eric bought a bouquet of fresh roses and returned to the tribe, planning to take it to Sarah for a date the next morning and ask her about her choice of lover. Greenie handed him a gift box in the evening. "Gale asked me to wait for you to come back before going out to visit relatives in the morning and give it to you." Eric's eyes lit up. "Sella's Christmas gift to me." Greenie nodded, feeling a little excited. "What did she give you? Open it and let me take a look." "You help me get the flowers." "They are for Sierra tomorrow." Eric put the flowers into her arms, wiped his fingers on the corners of his military uniform, and then took the gift box and opened it. There was only a letter and a dying lily. Greenie was surprised. "Did she only take this as a gift for you? This is too shabby, and it also comes with a lily to commemorate the dead, which doesn't have a good meaning at all." "It's a good gift." Eric thought the answer was in the letter, and he opened the letter stained with lily dew with great anticipation. As he read the letter, his body gradually stiffened. Greenie asked curiously, "What's wrong?" After reading the entire letter, Eric's breathing became rapid, his chest heaved violently, his excitement disappeared, and angry veins climbed up his neck. Seeing that something was wrong with him, Greenie took the letter away from his hand. "What did she say to you?" "She lied to me." Eric squeezed out a low growl from between his teeth, and then he couldn't bear it anymore. He turned around and ran towards the forest. The moment he was about to run into the forest, his body deformed in mid-air, tearing his clothes and turning into a head. Giant gray wolf. The mournful howl of the wolf startled a flock of birds on the branch. Greenie quickly finished reading the letter and covered her mouth with one hand. "Oh my God! She never thought that the good Sira, whom she trusted so much, was actually an emotional liar. This is all heartbreaking content. Eric, Greenie screamed, and the movement attracted the attention of other people in the tribe. She shouted, "Follow Eric. He is looking for Sira. Go and follow him." In Wally overnight, there were many more people searching on the road. Kalida's bodyguard group, Eric's military team and his tribe, Rose Hill's vampire subordinates, and the people of Lashid. The small town seems to have never been so lively. Thinking of the war breaking out on the front line, everyone is panicked. From being judged by the judge, to being sent to a brothel, and then to being sent to that gloomy old castle, Anai has experienced ups and downs in this life. She knelt on the red plush carpet filled with glass shards. The sharp slag pierced her knees, causing her to bleed. "It hurts so much, let me go," she cried, begging for mercy from the noble vampire who seemed to be sitting on the throne. The young man's hair was curled in the flickering candlelight, his facial contours were highlighted by shadows, and his fingertips were tapping his thighs. "What's your system?" Anaxi trembled all over, staring at him blurrily with tear-filled eyes. "What?" The candle light shook violently, and the person on it disappeared. The next second, a cold hand clamped on her neck. Rose Hill asked coldly, "What is the purpose of your system and you?" The feeling of suffocation made Anaxi hold the hand in pain. I don't understand." Boom. The gate of the castle was split into two, and a giant wolf rushed in, knocking over the few remaining antique ornaments in the hall and destroying an oil painting on the wall. When Anaxi saw the wolf that was bigger than a horse, the ferocious beast's eyes stared at it, and the beast's mouth showed sharp fangs, which made her legs tremble with fear. I said. Don't kill me, don't kill me." After a fruitless search, Roxid also thought of Anasi, and the three of them gathered in the castle that was about to become ruins. The entire castle was surrounded by inhuman creatures. Anna 11 covered her neck and huddled into a ball. She ignored the system's warning and said tremblingly, "I have been implanted with something called the strategy system in my brain since I was a child. It tells me that I must collect the favorability of the three of you and be with you." There was no surprise on Rose Hill's expression. She had explained most of the content in the letter written by Sira, but the truth still sounded like it made him angry. "You know everyone's identity: vampire, werewolf, mermaid." Every time the name of a species was given, Anaxi's body trembled, and she had to admit, "I know it, and Sira knows it too." So in the beginning, both men approached them with the same purpose. Eric turned into a human and casually pulled the curtain cloth around his waist. Out of anger, he punched her feet. "You were the one who reported on the church." The tile floor under the carpet was broken. Anaxi screamed in fear, trembling and wanted to retreat. "It is my mission to win your favor. It is also my mission to be with you. It was she who took away everything that should belong to me." Eric's eyes twisted. "So my feeling has never been missed. If there was no system to let you get close to me, how could you stand by my side when you were a child? You give him care because you have a purpose, not true love." Anaxi was stimulated and looked crazy. "You think it's not Sierra? So is Sierra. So is she. I thought the two were different, but in fact they were both the same." However, Sierra's purpose was just to return to her so-called home. His heart was stabbed hard. Eric couldn't control his temper and raised his hand to kill her. Rose Hill was very fast and kicked him on the waist with her long legs, instantly kicking her out. Eric rolled to the ground, grinning with a fierce look on his face. He didn't want to admit that her approach was a scam and deceived him of his sincerity. In the end, all he confessed was a confession. There were even 3 identical copies of this letter. Emotions are not valued, discarded, or even trampled on. Eric's eyes gradually became watery. He suppressed his temper and didn't pay attention to Rose Hill's kick. He asked Anna 11, "Do you know where she went?" The purpose of gathering here is just to find her. Anaxi said with a trembling voice, "Will you let me go if I find you? Will you let me go back to that brothel again? I will never go back there again."